Parents hear about probiotics everywhere, but are they really necessary for your kids? Should you be giving a supplement, or is a yogurt or kefir enough? Well, today I'm joined by gut health expert Desiree Nielsen, and together we're going to unpack the science, the myths, and maybe even go into some fun ways you can include probiotics into your kids' everyday meals without the stress or the fuss. Welcome to the Messy Bite Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BioK+. Their new Kids Probiotic Stick Packs makes it so easy to support your kids' immune health. Each daily packet delivers 500 million SFUs of the strain LC40, naturally found in breast milk, plus vitamin D3. Just mix it into any cold drink or beverage that your kid already enjoys, and that's it. You can find them at Whole Foods or at biokplus.com. Today, I am so excited to welcome a very special guest, the one, the only, Desiree Nielsen. She's a registered dietitian, mom of two, three-time Canadian best-selling author, cookbook, and perpetually amateur gardener. Maybe she's going to give me some tips. But what I love most about Desiree, because I've known her for a while, is she just has this incredible knowledge of gut health. It's like all of this computer in her brain, and she's able to translate it in just such a way that I'm always in awe. So Desiree, I am delighted to have you here.
I am so excited. Congratulations on the podcast. It's amazing. And you know me, I'm a huge nerd. So I'm very excited to nerd out with you on this stuff.
You're the gut health nerd, and I love having people like you in Messy Bites so we can learn all about probiotics in kids. It's a new buzz. So let's start with the basics. Could you define probiotics in parent-friendly terms?
Yeah, because it's one of those, and this happens in wellness and nutrition all the time. We have all these words we throw around and we think we know what they are, but when pressed, we're like, oh, maybe not. So let's talk about probiotics because there is like a scientific, strict definition, which I think might surprise people, but the crux is this. Just like all germs do not make us sick, not all bacteria packaged in a bottle are necessarily probiotics. And the reason for that is that bacteria are living, metabolizing organisms, and it's kind of hard to keep them alive. It's also kind of hard to know what they do in your body unless you've actually done research to say, oh, hey, when I put bacteria X in my body, Y happens. And so when it comes to a probiotic, we really want to make sure that we are purchasing something that we understand exactly what's in it. We have some research behind it. And I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version. How do you even know if there's research? Because that's also very confusing. But yeah, so living microorganisms that are typically found in the human body that we take to try and strengthen our gut microbiome, which is another one of those terms that we hear so much about. It's also a little confusing.
So I love it. So living microorganisms that there's going to be some scientific research to show that there's going to be some type of health benefit.
Exactly. You want to know that when you take it, something good is going to happen. And we have actual science behind that.
I love it. And so what's the difference between a probiotic and a prebiotic? And now just to confuse parents a little bit more, a postbiotic, because I think we might see probiotic and prebiotic, but now we're seeing postbiotic. Tell me what they are.
Yeah. So now that we know that probiotics are the microbes, like the good bacteria, well, anything that's alive needs food. Prebiotics, think we do pre as in before, right? So before the probiotics comes the prebiotics. That's the food for the healthy bacteria. And when you give probiotics their food, they make post. Post means after, right? So they metabolize it, they ferment it, and then something else happens. And those are the postbiotics. So essentially, what's the good stuff that happens metabolically speaking, when we feed good bugs the food they want.
And to have a healthy, gut health, do we need all three of them? Like, should we be looking for the food that's gonna feed the bacteria, and then that we're gonna get like the short fat? Like, do we need all three?
If you believe supplement marketers, they're going to throw all of those things at you. There's like a supplement for everything these
Yeah.
days. What you have to realize, though, is probiotics are bacteria that comes from humans. They are meant to live in your body. What do
Okay.
humans do? Very conveniently, we eat. And
Yeah.
so anything that we do not digest and absorb travels through the gut to where the bacteria live, and then they munch on our leftovers. That is when you're eating a balanced diet, which we can also talk about.
Yeah.
That is all the prebiotic you need. Eating a variety of healthy foods, and you make sure your bacteria get what they need. And then they're going to do the stuff that they do anyways. That postbiotic stuff, you let the bacteria take care
Yeah.
of that.
And so when we see words like foods that contain probiotics, so talk to me about food. You mentioned, like, of course, we're going to dive into real food because that's what parents are feeding their everyday kids. Which foods contain probiotics?
Yeah. So we typically talk about fermented foods as containing probiotics. And there's like a little bit of an asterisk because some fermented foods do contain microbes that we know actually have a health benefit. So we have decades of research on things like yogurts and kimchi, particularly. There's like a really awesome science base on kimchi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super, super cool. In part because we have this incredible population that eats it all the time. So it's a
Mhm.
really great population to study. Hey, what happens when we eat like a little
Yeah.
more kimchi or a little less? But those foods aren't necessarily probiotic. And
Huh.
surprising, I know, we know that they're beneficial. We absolutely, as much as you love them, as fit into your diet, kombucha, kimchi, kefirs, anything you love, eat more of them. Our bodies were meant to be in this like balance with
Mhm.
microbes in the outside world. So definitely eat lots of fermented foods. But we don't have a lot of research to say when you consume this fermented food, this happens.
Got it. Got it. So, yes, on the fermented foods,
Yeah,
right? They're going to have
love them.
great benefits. So, continue with the fermented foods, but that doesn't mean that all fermented foods are going to contain probiotics that are going to actually have a health benefit. And I think that's a very big misconception that we might see. Oh, kimchi or kombucha. That's great, but let's not confuse it with an actual probiotic. Am I right?
Totally. Like I've been doing this work for like 15 years, and the amount of times that people will be like, oh, I don't need a probiotic because I drink my kombucha. And I'll say, well, but you're coming to me because you have irritable bowel syndrome. And like you're not feeling good. Like it's not the kombucha's not taking care of the irritable bowel syndrome. So I think for parents in particular, what's most important is we think about what are our goals.
Yeah.
And if the goal is simply to have a generally healthy child, a healthy, nourished body, fermented foods might be all you need. However, if you have different goals, like my child seems to be really prone to like loose bowels,
Yeah.
or maybe pretty prone to like catching the sniffles during cold season,
Mhm.
which, I've already fallen victim to in the first couple of weeks of school. When we have a different health goal, that's when we get super curious about, maybe a probiotic on top of my generally healthy diet might get me closer to my health goal than just diet alone.
I love it. And I think, for me as an RD, we didn't really hear about probiotics until really the last 10 years or so. So for me, it's also been fascinating, like all the science and the advancement. So why do you think we're hearing so much about probiotics now?
Yeah, because the science, I think, like you said, has really exploded in a couple of ways. Not just our ability to do science around bacteria, which are kind of hard to study, to be totally honest. So that science has exploded in and of itself, but also our awareness of what our gut microbiome does for us and our body. And so for anyone who's like uncertain about that term, When we
Please,
say,
I was about to ask you. I was like, could you please,
yeah,
parents, if you've heard this word gut microbiome, but you're like, this is the moment to tune in and listen to Desiree.
totally, because another one of these things that we just throw around and we're like, I think I know what that means, but I'm not sure. So the gut microbiome refers to all of the trillions of microbes, like little bugs living in your gut, and the effect that they have on your body. And what we know now, and it's really been this explosion of awareness, is that the gut microbiome has an impact on all sorts of things. I mean, you might expect digestion, of course, like
Mhm.
anyone with like loose bowels or prone to constipation, like that makes a lot of sense. But it does a lot more than that. The gut microbiome interacts with your immune function, like your immune system is largely located in your gut, which I think for anyone, when we think immune, we think sniffles, we think maybe, coughing out of the lungs. We think of that as our
Yeah.
immune system, but actually 70% of it is centered in and around our digestive tract. The gut microbiome also influences our nervous system. So we know that who we are as humans is in collaboration and conversation with all these tiny little microbes in our body. And so, because that is so important, we're now saying, oh, well, what's a healthy microbiome look like? What makes it more healthy? What makes it less healthy? And can we put healthy bacteria in the body to sort of like give us a little advantage? So that's sort of where we're at. Sometimes we have more questions than answers at this point, but we do have a lot of interesting answers to guide us.
And I love it because it's like we hear this term, it's like our gut is our second brain, right? Because all that you just mentioned. And I go back to, the phrase that we say, trust your gut, right? And so this refers to like gut also being this source of information, this
Mhm.
source of like brain connection. And so now that we have this research, we're like, well, that makes sense. Like if we were to listen to our gut, like now I understand this phrase because it's all connected. It's really our second brain.
Yeah.
And so now that you're talking about the research, I really want to dive in a little bit more. Maybe you can shed some research into, what we currently know. Do we know more about the digestive system? Do we know about the benefits of immunity? And in particular, do we have specific research on kids and taking probiotics?
We do. We have a very large evidence base. The challenge that I will say before like I get into any of the research findings, because it is super cool, is that we always have to take this stuff with a grain of salt, because when we get really into microbiome research, we can immediately say the microbiome is like the most important thing, the only thing. But no, other things still matter. Stress matters, sleep matters, nutrition, moving our bodies. It's just now we have this new pillar. So, in addition to those things, we now add the microbiome in our thoughts. So, what we know is that there are changes in the microbiome that are associated with like most major chronic disease states.
Okay.
So, when someone has diabetes, for example, we know that their microbiome typically looks different than someone without it. We also know that when someone has, very, very specifically like irritable bowel syndrome that affects the gut, of course, their microbiome looks different than someone who doesn't have IBS. And in kids in particular, we also know that there are certain conditions that are associated, in early life, even things like autism, where the
Yeah,
microbiome looks different
that's right.
than kids who don't have it. Now, can I say, oh, because of that, you need to eat X, Y, and Z and take this exact probiotic? No. And beware of any quote unquote expert who tells you that. Right now, all we say is, the microbiome is different. What is causing it? Is it the disease itself causing it? But then also because the way we live influences our microbiome a lot, how we eat, our stress, our sleep, how we move our bodies, the ability to put good bacteria in. Can we just improve our chances of having a healthier microbiome and maybe feeling a little bit better if we focus on doing the things that make our microbiome happy?
So I love it. I think, be wary of anybody that's saying this is gonna, cure this, because I think the beauty of research, and that's I think why we love it so much, is that we usually have more questions than answers, right? And sometimes we're like, this is what we know, but then, oh, actually, let's take it back. And the
Yeah.
way I started to hear more about probiotics was actually through diabetes conferences. And exactly as you said, we knew that there was differences, right? We knew that, the microbiome of somebody with type 1 diabetes just looked different. And as you mentioned, it's so interesting, even with kids with autism, it's different. How different? We don't know. But I think the message is we want to do anything that we can to just help it a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? To just, again, we might not know all the answers. Some research might point us in this direction. But I think at this point in the research, we don't know that doing X will 100%, reverse type 1 diabetes or, whatever that may be. So beautiful, beautiful point. So you mentioned about strains. Are all strains created equal? And I think this is something that many consumers don't understand. They say, my kid has constipation. Let me just get a probiotic.
Right?
Talk
Yeah.
to us about strains. Are they the same? Are they different?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. Okay, there's so much I want to say here. Let's start with this level. When we talk about probiotics, if you don't know a lot about bacteria, which honestly, I spent 15 years of my career catching up to the fact that I never took a microbiology course in university. Like I did not know a lot about bacteria before I started this. So when we say probiotic, we think of it as one thing,
Yes.
like saying vitamin D is one thing, but that's not correct. Bacteria is like a whole world of different individuals. And when you said the word strain, the strain is the individual bacteria that's totally unique. And a really great analogy for this is saying probiotics is like saying human beings. There
Oh
are like
my
8
goodness.
billion of us on this planet, right? And the specific Desiree Nielsen, who lives in Vancouver, who happens to be a dietitian, who's half Portuguese, that's my specific individual human beingness. So when we say a strain of probiotic, we mean the very specific, totally different bacteria than like bacteria X is different than bacteria Y. That's super important
Yeah.
because when you go to a health food store and you just see all the probiotics, and someone says, yeah, just take a probiotic probiotics are great for constipation. Well, some probiotics are great for constipation. Others are not. They don't do anything for constipation. That's why that science piece is so important because how do you want to make sure that like you don't make it worse, right? You want something that works for constipation and doesn't make it worse. And my favorite cheat sheet, and I'll like jump ahead to the cheat sheet because if a parent listening to this is like, well, how the heck could I ever know which ones have science? Because all the marketing says science backed and proven and clinically researched. There's a really cool resource. It's totally free online called the US Probiotic Guide. It's just usprobioticguide.com. It's run by a clinical pharmacist and a medical advisory board. And every year they publish the probiotics that are available in the United States, along with what they're good for and the level of research. And that's super important too, because you always want level 1 research, which means they have at least one really, really good randomized control trial in humans, not animals, humans, to show that it works. So that's how you know that you're getting the right strain for the right person for the right reason.
Oh my God, you just like blew my mind thinking, there's like millions of probiotics. But I think the takeaway for many parents is number one, not every probiotic in the market is going to have scientific evidence. And I think that's huge. And the second part is depending on the condition your child or you yourself have, we need to take that probiotic. So it's really, I have A and I'm looking to, help me with A, not A with Z and D. So it's finding that finding your soulmate is really
Yeah.
what we're trying to get. We're trying to find our soulmate.
Your bacterial soulmate. I love that.
Your bacterial soulmate in a probiotic. And I love that resources. I'm also going to include the ISAP, the International Scientific Association of Prebiotics and Probiotics. They really have incredible infographics for both consumers and if you're also a healthcare provider and you're looking for kind of quick resource that says, okay, these are the strains available. This is what they do. And this is the level of research that's available. So quick note, I'm going to put that in the links as well. And so now let's do the flip side. Is there a time where you wouldn't recommend a probiotics for kids?
There are many times when we wouldn't recommend a probiotic for children. First things first, the biggest contraindication for probiotics is any sort of immunocompromised state.
Yeah.
So kids who are on immunosuppressive medications or who have inherent, because of a disease condition, like immune suppression, should not be taking you shouldn't be taking anything without first talking to your doctor and clearing it. Super, super important. The other thing you want to consider too is whether or not it fits the budget. And I think this is really important for parents because we want to do the best for our kids and we want to give them everything we can. But it's really the most important thing for a healthy microbiome is food first, to be well fed with the biggest variety of foods that your selective eater and your budget will allow. And that's really, really critical because you can put good bacteria in, but if they're not fed a healthy diet that they need,
what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? And so now that we know maybe who shouldn't, are there on the flip side, conditions that you're like, absolutely, like in these, you mentioned irritable bowel disease, we've talked about constipation. Are there other conditions in your brain as a gut health expert that you're like, then we should really consider it if you have A, B, and C conditions with kids? What would those conditions be?
Yeah. So as a practitioner, anytime there is some sort of digestive issue, like anything going on with the gut, that's really for me, like as soon as we've ruled out, well, is there a food allergy, for example, that's when I'm really, really curious about using a probiotic. The other really surprising, very surprising, I think, for most people, use case for probiotics is immune support.
Yeah.
Again, right? Nose, lungs, up here. Like, why are we taking a probiotic that goes in our gut? And the reason for that is because the microbiome, so those good bacteria, are interacting with your immune system. And we also have quite a large body of evidence, not to say that this happens, but like not just to say that this happens, but also when we take probiotics, we appear to have a lower risk of garden variety cold and flu. That's at the level of evidence that, like, for anyone who's in healthcare, we have these Cochrane review things, which is like our gold standard of like all of the research in the world, like what's it sort of net out to be. And the latest, which was in 2022, they update it all the time, showed that probiotics are better than placebo, aka doing nothing, at reducing risk of cold and flu. So for me, with kids,
Interesting.
Both at big schools, different schools, somehow, no matter how much I harp on them, they're still not washing their hands enough. They're still like everywhere and then trying to touch me with it, of course. So, they're little germ factories. And so I am interested in a probiotic just to help give them a boost and a little bit more resilience in the face of like just garden variety cold and flu.
And I think for many of us, even for me, like we only associate a probiotic with like digestion, constipation, diarrhea. But really here, we're now talking about immunity, kind of maybe boosting it or helping it, especially I think cold and flu season, back to school, if it's like the holidays and we're going to be surrounded by a lot of people. So that's probably an insight that many parents never knew that a probiotic could help support kids in immunity health, right?
Yeah.
So now that I have you and you're my nerdy friend, I'm just curious to know, is there like a new scientific or something that you've learned recently in science as it relates to gut health or probiotics that you've been geeking on? You're like, I can't believe this is happening, or that you've just been really interested? I would love to know what you have.
I think that there's two things. One that I'm really just keeping an eye on. I'm very interested because of the connection of the microbiome and the nervous system and all the research happening on autism on that one side. So on the theoretical side, like I'm very interested in the future on that. And then the other thing that I'm really interested in on the like, oh, so what do I do about probiotics is there is a new probiotic that I'm really interested in, and it's a breast milk strain probiotic, which, if we want to talk about cool, nerdy science stuff, breast milk is quite incredible because, of course, we know that it's a source of nourishment. What we don't realize is that it's also an immune education.
Yeah.
So it contains bacteria. It contains probiotic bacteria. It also contains those prebiotics that we were talking about. So the bacteria plus the food to help foster the growth of those bacteria. And so there is a new probiotic that I work with called BioK Plus Kids. And this is a human breast milk strain, which has over 50 scientific papers behind it. That's the other thing that's that's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's the first one that's ever come from breast milk. And we know that this strain in particular, which if you want the super gobbledygook name, is Limosolactobacillus fermentum, LC40. The LC40 is like saying Desiree Nielsen. That's like you're like,
LC40. We'll stick to the LC40.
Right? That's why we do it. So we know that in taking this bacteria, which particularly looks like it's focused on immune support and digestive health. So a decrease in digestive incidence, so like loose bowels, for example, in the largest sort of like review of 3 studies with like 500 children, 48% decrease in GI incidence, which is pretty major. And then another study found that there was a 27% decrease in the garden variety cold and flu, what we call in the research, the upper respiratory tract infections. So I am very much geeking out on that specific probiotic.
I'm geeking out, and that's why I ask you, because I think there's just a lot that we don't know. But the fact that there's been studies to show it, I think as healthcare providers, we need to look at that, right? In order for us to just recommend something or say something, like, is there research to back it up? So the fact that there's multiple studies and it's coming from breast milk, it's like, and it helps with potentially, it could support immune system. And in the studies, it showed in digestive health. It's like, it's pretty good bang for your buck.
It's pretty cool. And, I think in talking about the research, particularly because what I would always hope is that anytime anyone hears any one of it, even though we're health professionals, we're not your health professional. Yes. So whenever you hear something from us, like, I want you to take it to your doc or your dietitian. Yeah. And here is where something very important about the research comes in, because there's a lot of controversy around probiotics for health professionals. And the reason for that is because we have tons of research on probiotics. Some are favorable and some are not favorable. And in order to understand that, we have to get back to what I said before, which is not all probiotics are the same thing. So if probiotics X didn't work for constipation in this study, that doesn't mean probiotic Y doesn't work for constipation. And in fact, it did in that study. So when we're looking at the research on probiotics, it's very important that we look for the specific research on the probiotic we're wanting to buy.
Yeah.
Because you can't take one study on one probiotic and say that it's the same as the other study on the other probiotic.
So now that we're talking about understanding more of the strains, I want to jump into kind of helping parents translate a lot of this research. And, how can parents start choosing a probiotic? Like, what do they look for?
Yeah. So you want to look for a couple of things. First, what is your goal? Is your goal to help out with the immune system, help out with some tummy troubles, or something else? You want to go to the probiotic guide or to ISAP information and say, which probiotic has research for that goal? That's the number one most important thing that you can do. If you find yourself just in a shop and you're like, I'm just going to go to the shop and I'm going
I'm
to
at the
look.
supermarket. I'm at Whole Foods. What
Yeah.
do I do? I want a probiotic. What do I do?
What do I do? So you want to make sure a couple of things. First, that on the label, they are very clear about exactly what strain is in it. So it shouldn't say something like acidophilus. Acidophilus is saying human beings, right? Like which human being, for example? I want to make sure they're fun at parties. So you want to make sure that it says exactly that big long name with like the LC40 or the CLR2, very specifically what is in it and how much. They should be very clear about exactly how much. Is it 500 million? Is it 1 billion? More is not always better because each bacteria has its own sweet spot. So some bacteria are evidence-based at 500 million. Others are evidence-based at 100 million. So unfortunately, that is where the research comes in too, but seeing it on the label is super important. The other thing you want to see is that they guarantee the potency of that product to an expiry date. No expiry date, do not buy. Do not pick up directly back to shelf. And you want to see somewhere that they guarantee that the bacteria, because if even good bacteria, if they're not alive when you take them, they're not going to do what you think they're going to do. So really specific about what's in it, how much is in it, and making sure that they're going to guarantee its potency to the expiry date on the package. Basics.
You just gave us like the cheat sheet of every parent that's now going to be going to Whole Foods is, what's my goal, right? What does my child have? But number one, strain, right? So what is this strain? It needs to be really specific, as Desiree just mentioned. How much of it, right? So what is the count? A lot doesn't necessarily mean better. And the last one, and I think it's the one that we never really pay attention, is are they able to guarantee that that live bacteria is still live?
Yeah.
And many probiotics don't mention anything about expiration date. They mentioned the first two, but I think the third one, you nailed it. So I think, oh my God, this is so exciting for parents. I'm going to have, I think I'll have a lot of questions. So even going back to parents, is it safe to take a daily probiotic? Because I think for many parents, and we'll go into the myth section a little bit more, we've heard that, oh, if your kid has diarrhea, then just take a probiotic while they're having the diarrhea. So is it safe for kids to be taking a daily supplement, a daily probiotic?
Yeah. So it really depends on the probiotic. And this is where research is so important for safety, because we don't want to give our children anything that could potentially harm their microbiome. And we've had some really interesting research suggesting that certain probiotics actually make it more difficult for your gut to bounce back after antibiotics, for example. And this is where the health professional uncertainty. We should always be uncertain and cautious and critical. And that's where that comes from. That's why, if we're going to give a probiotic with antibiotics to help prevent that antibiotic associated diarrhea, we want a probiotic that's been studied for that exact purpose.
So the strain, let's go back to the strain. Is that strain actually going to be solving your diarrhea, or is it going to make it worse? So
exactly.
Strain. Okay.
Yeah, strain, super important, and the research is there. The other thing, with children in particular, there should always be good safety data, but there should in particular be for children. And, coming back to the LC40 that we talked about, they've done research where you give the probiotic and then you check in on the kids a couple of years later to see has there been any impact on growth curves, for example, with zero. That's the kind of research you want to see on probiotics to make sure that it's super safe for our kids.
Awesome. And so, you talked about food. Tell me your thoughts on, do we get the same benefit from a probiotic supplement as we would from just eating food that is fermented, or even food that actually does contain some added probiotics? Is the pill the same? Is it better? Is it worse?
Yeah, I wish I had such a clear-cut answer for this, because that would be so helpful, wouldn't it?
Yes.
What I will say is they are different and they have different purposes.
Okay.
So think of fermented foods the same way you think of any food. We We drink our milk not to like build 7 pounds of bone overnight. We drink our milk as part of a healthy diet because it contains calcium that builds healthy bones over time. We should think about our fermented foods like that. You know, a sip of kombucha is not going to cure your diarrhea overnight, but drinking kefir and eating yogurt and drinking your kombucha over time is contributing to a healthy, resilient gut. So that's what we want to do. And then a probiotic is for a goal. So it will also contribute to a healthy, resilient gut, but it'll do so in a more concentrated way because the dose is often much higher. Like a typical yogurt, we might, depending on the brand, maybe we'll have 100 million or a couple 100 million live active cultures. A probiotic is often much higher than that. So it is more concentrated and more targeted, sort of get us to our goal faster. And sometimes we can do that in a supplement, and some foods have added research-backed probiotics as well. And so I think that's the sort of difference between like a garden variety fermented food versus a food with like, hey, this probiotic does something, and we just put it in the food.
So to me, what you're saying is have both. Like they're not mutually exclusive. Like if we're looking for overall gut health and immune health and just stronger kids, we definitely should be including those fermented food as part of your daily, everyday meals, but also realizing that if we do take a probiotic for a specific strain, we might have a more targeted approach for that desired, condition. I love it. And so one question that I've often get is the pill the same as, maybe if I do a liquid, or what about a gummy? Are they going to be the same? Is one method better in terms of getting the effects compared to the other?
Yeah. So if the product is made really well, it is the same effect. And that comes back to that. Well, do they know if they put the probiotic in this capsule or in this powder or in this gummy? Is it alive? Is it active? Did they put enough in it? So there are many different formats. There are fresh fermented liquids. There are capsules. The one important thing with capsules that I will say, if you want a capsule to make sure that it'll protect the bacteria and get it to where they want to go, for older children or for yourself, if you're consuming capsules, you want either enteric coating or delayed release. You want to see one of those two things on the capsule, because that means that the capsule's not going to disintegrate in the stomach, where potentially then the bacteria disintegrate in the stomach.
Yeah.
Others, like liquids, and there are lots of powders. We know that those bacteria also do survive. They tend to be dosed a little higher to ensure survival. And we know that those survive, because part of being a probiotic bacteria, it's from the gut. Like that's its neighborhood. There is like a little bit of like toughness that it's like, I can handle the gut, right? So, that is part of what a probiotic is.
And that's why initially I would be wary of anything that wasn't in the refrigerator, because in my mind, I was like, it's live bacteria, right? We need to keep this beautiful state as is. But I think with new technology is we've been seeing different products. And so that doesn't mean if it's not in the freezer, in the not freezer, because we're going to be killing it in the refrigerator, that it's not going to have the same effect. But we do need to be careful in terms of how they're being made. And going back to your third point, can they guarantee that that bacteria is still going to survive after that expiration date? Because the last thing that I want is to grab a really expensive, powder or pill, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't really know if whatever I bought is really going to transit and get to where it needs to go, right?
Totally. And I will say two things there. One, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said refrigeration, of course.
Yes, I would have said the same thing.
Because
but now
we do.
It's changed.
It's the danger zone, right? Like, your burger's done at 71. Like we have to keep food out of the danger zone because it's alive and bacteria grow. But the technology has changed, which is super cool. So when you see something on the shelf, it could still also be extremely good because the technology is just chef's kiss now. The other thing that I will say is whenever you have a liquid or a powder probiotic, what you never want to do, because many of those, they're so great for kids because you can stir them into yogurt or you add them to breakfast cereal or put them in a smoothie. We never want to heat them. We always want to put them in cool or cold foods so that we don't cook the bacteria, because your burger's done at 71, so is your bacteria.
Yeah. So again, thinking of that precious bacteria is we want to keep it in the safe zone, not heating and not in the freezer zone, just right there. So now that we're talking about food and the right temperature, now I'm hungry. One of the reasons that I loved having you here and I love bringing you here is that you're a mom, right? And kind of the struggles of how it is to feed kids, to get them through school, to say, ew, I don't like it. So I would love to know, what's your favorite way or your best way that you including probiotics in just your everyday routine, or do you include probiotics for your kids in your everyday routine? And any advice for moms to just make it no fuss?
Yeah. So, when there is a probiotic that your kids just naturally love, like my kids drink the BioK liquids and they actually love them. So there is no worry about that whatsoever. When you have children who are more selective, then a probiotic you can put in something is excellent. So if they have a favorite yogurt and you can stir a flavorless powder into that yogurt, perfect. I do also still recommend letting kids know. So I am not a pediatric dietitian. I am only an expert on feeding 2 children and maybe even not an expert most days. I don't know that I feel, but I really love sharing when I add new things into their diet. I love to talk to them both on the experiential level, but also on the functional level. So when I say experiential, I mean like, what's the taste? What's the texture? Or even like, look at this cool powder. You're like, did you realize this is bacteria? Like these are probiotic bacteria. And, I think most kids are pretty curious. They'd be like, that's super cool. So on taste and texture and look, I love to connect around food in that way, but then also the function. Yeah. Another great example is that, when we drink our milk has calcium. Calcium is like tiny little rocks that make our bones strong, So not only the joy of eating, but then also the really cool benefits that come. And so same with bacteria, we can have this conversation. Like you can't see them with your eye. They're so tiny, but they live on us and in us all around. And they help us do so many cool things like making sure our gut works really well. We know, if we have a fussy tummy, like that doesn't feel good. And when our gut works well, it feels great. Or that our bacteria can help interact with like our sniffle season issues, So like having good bacteria in your gut helps with cold and flu. So really sort of talking to them about like, this is really cool to like know nerdy facts about your body. And when we eat these foods or take probiotics, for example, that's actually helping you.
And so it reminds me of when I explained to my kids what are probiotics. And I said, think about your stomach having an army, like a bacteria that it's an army, and it's really going to be fighting against maybe some not so great another army that's really going to be maybe making you sick or, causing some type. So it's like in their brain, it's like, oh, are those like the bugs that are going to be fighting my stomach? And I just laugh because in their brain, it's like they literally see like an army of little bacteria that is doing something. Yeah. And in full transparency, I think that's one of the reasons why I really loved BioK, the liquid supplement, because when I tasted, I actually really loved it because it tasted really good. And I was like, oh, this is probably something that my kids are going to enjoy, just really simple without like the medicine vibes type of thing. And so for me as a mom and also as a pediatric dietitian, it really comes down to how can you just integrate it in everyday meals. And so just like I would add some Greek yogurt and some flax seeds, I would add also a liquid type of probiotic or sometimes just the powder. So, and I love that you said integrating them and it's not about sneaking, but it's, this is what we're adding. And they're like, oh, you're going to be adding the bugs, the good bugs, right? And so, I mean, kids get it, but it's how can we make it real and simple and not, oh, we need to do this and we need to take this.
Well, and I think as parents, kids are so used to us just like telling them that they need to do something. And I think the why is so powerful. And sometimes I just say to my kids, you've got to know that I always have your best interest at heart. Like, I never say no, or I never tell you to do something with no reason. We're working on our responsibility right now, or we're working on, our health right now. And so to really help foster awareness, but also empower them to say, like, I, as a little person, have goals. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be able to run fast. I want to be able to do my art or do my sports. And then all the little things we do as parents that are trying to support them in that. And I think it just really helps them not just feel like, oh, okay, mom's just saying this again, and it's super annoying.
Yeah. And so now let's do a little, let's get questions. So some Q&A, the parent edition. So in case you don't know, I opened up the questions on my Instagram because I knew the expert was coming. And surprisingly, I got some amazing questions. So we're going to do some of these questions. We might have already answered them. And then later on, we're going to do a myth and reality. So first question, is a probiotic for picky eaters?
Yes, because there are probiotics to fit whether or not you need to make them sort of not look like they're there, or there's lots of delicious flavored probiotics. There's something for everyone.
So do kids always need them if they're eating a balanced meal? And what does it actually help kids with?
Yeah. So again, it comes down to your goal. If kids are eating balanced meals, you feel really good about their nutrition, their health is in great shape, it may or may not be right for you. We're always trying to do the simplest thing possible. We don't want to add complexity if we don't need to add complexity. But if you notice that there's a lot of cold and flus going around, or your little one is just super prone to the sniffles, that's when you have a different goal now. And then you're like, oh, what can help me? And a probiotic might be able to help you in your goal.
And it's not going to hurt. And I think I'll add in the Latin culture, because I think that for Latinos, in our diet, it's somewhat hard to find naturally fermented rich foods, or even besides like the yogurt and the kefir that would have some type of probiotic added or in it. We don't have the kimchi, right? Maybe the tofu or the tempeh, like they're not as traditional to us. And so I think when you're talking about everyday meals, in specifically gut health, I think for Latinos in our culture, fermented foods might not be something that we're eating on an everyday basis. And I think that's important. And so I think for me, as a pediatric dietitian, I am keeping gut health in mind. And of course, besides the yogurt and the kefir, and that's when a supplement for me might come into play, or maybe not, again, depending on the goals, but realizing that depending on the culture, they might be eating more or less fermented rich foods, which will have a benefit. So good point to keep in mind. Do adolescents still need probiotics?
So I do, as the parent to a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, whom I watched smash 2 Krispy Kreme donuts together yesterday and eat them. I will say that sometime as adolescents explore their independence and they have their own money and they make their own food choices, sometimes the foods that they're served at home aren't as large a part of their diet. And maybe their gut might not be getting the fiber or the fermented foods that we would serve them as parents. And so, yeah, a probiotic, particularly if they have any little niggling issues with their digestion, a probiotic could still be an excellent idea.
I love it. Another question. Are some strains more important for kids?
Great question. And I get to return to something I didn't say earlier, which is that one of the biggest questions we have right now, and people listening are probably going to be shocked. We can't actually tell you exactly what a healthy microbiome is. How? Like, we can tell you the kind of microbiomes that healthy people have, but we can't tell you exactly the microbiome that is healthy or unhealthy. And the reason for that is because we have trillions of bacteria. And while there's lots of different individual strains, there's also a lot of doubling up of function. And what I mean is that, we might have probiotic X, Y, Z, and A, and all 4 of those seem to help the immune system. So do you have to have all four? Is having one enough? Is having two enough? Like I might not have like Y and A, but I do have Z. So
Got it.
we don't have those answers. And so similarly for types of bacteria, we can't say you have to give these bacteria like they're a vitamin or something.
Yeah.
But what we can say is we have specific probiotics that are researched in kids to help you with your goals, like immune
Got it.
system or
Got
digestive.
it. I love it. That's a wonderful question. Awesome. So we'll now switch into the myth and reality. And I think the reason I'm asking you this is because in the summer, I was in El Paso, Texas with my family, and my mom was like, Marina, I saw this ad that if I take this probiotic, it was going to help me lose weight. And so I wanted to do a really quick myth versus reality now that I have the expert parent edition. Again, we might have talked about a few of them, but do myth or reality? All yogurts contain probiotics.
Myth.
Myth or reality? More probiotics equals better.
Myth.
Myth or reality? Probiotics help kids and adults lose weight.
Big red flag myth. Red flag. Red flag.
And going back to the first question is like, if they're saying doing this will solve this and it will be a miracle, I think we need to question our sources. Probiotics in a pill or powder are not as effective.
Myth.
Probiotics only help with digestion.
Myth.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I hope this gives parents some clarity that we answered all the questions from like the research. I'm now geeked up about the research that's coming through. But of course, I'm not going to let Ms. Desiree leave without doing our wonderful rapid response featuring Desiree Nielsen. So, Ms. Desiree, we're going to do a quick rapid response. You're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind. There's no judgment here.
Okay.
All right. If you had to describe your gut in one word, what would it be?
Chaotic. I've got IBS. I didn't even need to think about that one. Chaotic.
Best way to include probiotics in your kids' meal?
Stir them in.
A gut-friendly food you can't live without.
That's hard because that's making me choose favorites. I have to say I have a particular soft spot for kimchi, though. I just love like garlicky, salty, crunchy things.
I need to get on that bandwagon. A childhood food memory that still makes you smile.
The I lived the shake and bake commercial in real life because I learned to cook at my grandmother's apron strings, and this is going to be a long story now. I'll try and make it short. She came to Canada in 1959. So our diet growing up was 50% traditional Portuguese foods and 50% whatever was cool in the 60s in Canada, including shake and bake. And so I was helping her by simply shaking it. But then she got a call from a friend and she like left the cooking scenario. And I'm very impatient. And I was like, Grandma, like I want to shake the chicken. And she's like, just do it yourself. So I remember the first time that I like touched chicken and put it in the bag. But I was very empowered. I literally
You
shaped
still remember
helped.
till this day.
And I
love it.
helped.
One food trend you secretly love and one you wish would disappear.
Well, I love that we're talking about fiber maxing, although we should not consume 40 grams of fiber in a single meal. I'll just put that out there as a GI dietitian. The one that needs to go, obviously, we need to cool it on protein.
Yes.
We are not protein malnourished, but we
Yes.
are with fiber.
I agree 100%. One food you think deserves more credit.
So many. Let's talk about lentils. Any legume, black beans, lentils, kidney. Why are we not eating kidney beans? Lentils and chickpeas maybe get a little too much love. Like we should bring back the kidney bean.
Let's bring back the kidney bean. Okay, I'm with you. One food your kids shockingly love.
Plain tofu.
Okay.
And not shocking to me, but I think a lot of parents immediately, if you didn't grow up with tofu, think, no, my kids ate plain tofu right out of the package from a very young age.
Beautiful. What's for dinner tonight at your home?
I am not normally this organized, but I have to do it for work. So red lentil chili.
Talk about lentils. Let's bring red lentil back. Okay, red lentil chili. And what's one thing you wish more parents knew about probiotics and gut health?
That bacteria are such an important part of a healthy diet. We want our vegetables, we want our fruits, we want our legumes, but also bring some sort of bacteria into your life and you'll have a healthier gut for it.
And there you have it, parents. A wealth of wisdom, probiotics, the science, gut health, healthy kids. I want to thank you, Desiree, from the bottom of my heart. This has been amazing. I have a lot more information. I hope our parents do as well. And where can families reach you?
Yes, so you can find me on the internet at Desiree RD, like registereddietitian.com. And then, of course, Instagram, Desiree Nielsen RD.
Thanks again, BioK, for supporting this episode. Their kids' probiotic stick pack makes it so easy. Just one pack a day provides 500 million SFUs plus vitamin D3 to help support your kids' immunity. You can find them at Whole Foods or at biokplus.com. And now for our Messy Bites Real Life Challenge. You guys know I like to keep it real and give you insights that you can actually use in real life. And this time, I want you to focus on probiotics. So why not incorporating, whether it's a probiotic-rich food, whether it's fermented food, whether we're trying a probiotic supplement, and including it in everyday meals. So we talked about dips, we talked about smoothies that you can add, maybe a liquid probiotic, a supplement, adding more kefir, yes, more yogurt with Greek cultures, yes. So keeping it simple and it tastes good. And if you even want to talk to your kids about probiotics, well, now you know how to talk to them about it. Let me know how it goes if your kids like them, or if you have any other questions that we didn't answer about probiotics, gut health, leave a comment below. As always, remember to focus on progress, never perfection. I hope to see you here next time. Remember, subscribe to the Messy Bite podcast. Hasta la próxima. Nos vemos después.